Alright, we're back, and here are the final results of the Lotto Tumble. There weren't a whole lot of rocks in it. I had a lot of ceramic media in it, but overall I'm pretty happy with how they came out. Probably a couple of the highlights. The one I definitely was expecting to come out real nicely. It did. I think it's a really nice rock. It started out looking like this, so that gives you kind of an idea. It looked pretty plain when it first started, but it ended up really pretty nice. There was a piece of, I had it in my pocket actually, a piece of tiger eye that I thought really came out very nicely. Pretty much sparkly all over. Can't beat that. That's what we're looking for. So that one came out really nicely. Here's another nice piece of tiger eye. This one I mentioned a couple of times. I have no idea what this is, but it's, I think it's pretty interesting. It shined up real nice. Don't know what it is. I'm not even real sure where I got it. So there we go. That's the results. Oh, this one was kind of neat. This is a piece of amethyst. It's got a clear spot in the middle of it. I don't know if you can see that. It's purple on the edges, but in the middle of it there's a spot that looks just like quartz. So there you go. Alright, I thought I would take some time and talk a little bit about, if you want to get into rock tumbling, what are you looking at? So I'm going to back the camera up a little bit so you can see more of what I have here on the table. Okay. Actually, I might back up a little more yet. Get this straight. Okay. If you want to get into rock tumbling, you're just starting out, you've got nothing right now. The first thing you're going to need is a tumbler. This is one of the barrels from the first tumbler I had, which was a Lortone. This is a 3-pound barrel. You see it's probably a little bigger than my hand. Probably 3 or 4 inches wide. Okay, the one I bought holds 2 of those barrels. Now what I did when I first got it was I bought 2 extra barrels, and that way at the time I could use 1 each. This was my rough barrel, and then I had a fine barrel, a pre-polished barrel, and a polished barrel, and that helps with cross-contamination. That way I wasn't using the same barrel all the time, with all the different grits. Okay, I bought a Lortone tumbler. At this point I own 2 Lortone tumblers, a Tumbler's tumbler, and a Lotto tumbler, and I have no complaints with any of them. So if you're a Tumbler fan, I am not criticizing tumblers. The one I have I think is fantastic. You're a Lortone fan, and I think it's fantastic too. The 3-pound I think I got almost 3 years ago. At this point I have replaced a belt once, and that's probably my fault. I probably didn't, I probably let it run loose, and I probably should have tightened it up, and I didn't, and I ruined the belt. But the expense of a new belt was pretty cheap. The battery's dying on my light. Okay, the lighting's fixed. So like I was saying, I'm not criticizing any others. Whatever you get, the ones I had have held up very, very well. I replaced this rubber on my 12-pound. I replaced the rubber part of this. Okay, I'd worn a hole right in the middle here. Luckily I found it before I tried to use it. But in all honesty, my 12-pound is running pretty much 24/7, and up until this past winter. I actually stopped this past winter, but from the time I bought it I ran it 24/7 after I got it, and I do all rough in it, so it's the hardest grit. So in all honesty, I have no complaints, and I think the rubber thing I bought cost me like $4 or $5, so it really wasn't too bad. To this point, all the tumblers I bought at the rock shop that's in South Dakota. I got them online. When I was looking, he always seemed to have the best prices on tumblers. It also gives you I think when you buy a tumbler, you get a deal on any grit or rough that you buy at the time. Which brings me to the next topic. You need grit. Okay. Here's my 60-90 grit. I keep them in these little totes. Okay, and basically the size of tumbler you get, the more grit you're going to need. And also, if you get a rotary tumbler, they use more grit than a vibratory. To give you an idea, the Lotto for my for fine, I use 2 tablespoons of grit. Where with my 12-pound rotary lower tone, I use about 12 tablespoons of rough grit. So you will need 4 kinds of grit. You got rough, fine, pre-polish, and polish. So basically, it takes grit. You got to have the grit, and you're going to need rocks. Now, if you're lucky enough to live in an area where they have, where you can just go out and pick up rocks, that is awesome. And actually, a lot of what I have on this table are stuff that I picked up locally. All these white rocks, I got all these at the Ohio River. I've also, I have right here, this is probably, if you watched any of my other videos, the first video I did, these were the rocks I tumbled, and these are flint, and I did pay, but it's a local place I went and I paid to collect, and the price was very, very reasonable. Okay, but if you don't have anything that you can collect locally to tumble, then you're going to have to buy rocks. And obviously a lot of what I have here I did buy. I can't get Tiger Eye where I live, so I bought that. And some of these, I took a trip last summer and I was at Lake Superior. I think I got this from Lake Superior. I can't swear to it, but I think I did. But if you don't have rocks that you can tumble locally, then you're going to have to buy them, and that can get fairly expensive. In a lot of cases, you're looking at probably $7 to $8 a pound, which means if you buy a large tumbler, you're going to need a lot of rocks to fill that thing up. So that's basically the concerns. For me, I've bought rough from Gems by Mail. This is online. I've bought them from the Rock Shop in South Dakota, and I got those online as well. And Kingsley North. And I think I've bought rough from a couple other random places. But basically, when you get it, it's going to look like this. You put it in a tumbler and you round it off, and then you polish it, and it should be shiny when you get done. Okay. Just to cut another thought, if you were going to buy a tumbler, you can't just buy a vibratory. The vibratories are faster. With rotary, you're looking a minimum a week on each thing, but that's kind of misleading. A lot of the things they'll say 1 week rough, 1 week fine, 1 week pre-polished. No, you put in, like for my 12-pound, I fill that thing up rough. I run it a week. When I open it up, if I'm lucky, maybe a quarter of them are ready to move on. So what happens is I take out those rocks, and that's what I have in here. These are rocks in water, keeping them wet, that have finished. I think they're good from stage 1. They're ready to move on to stage 2. Okay, so then I fill the 12-pound back up, and I keep going for another week on rough. And at the end of another week, hopefully a few more are done. I pull them out, fill it back up, start it again. You could go 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks for some rocks in stage 1 before they're ready. And what I'm doing is I'm waiting until I have enough rocks that are ready to move on to stage 2, and then I'll move them to the vibratory. You can't do stage 1. The 60-90 grit for stage 1 is too rough for the vibratory, so you just can't do it. Okay, so you got to do your stage 1 in a rotary. Now, you can do stage 2, 3, and 4 in a rotary, but they're going to take longer. Okay, so when you get to stage 2, you go to 120, 220 grit, and you go a week or 2 weeks in that, and then you move up to the pre-polish, and then you move up to the polish. So literally with a rotary, you could be looking at a month and a half, 2 months to go from this that to that. Now with the rotary, with the vibratory, once you get to the vibratory, I've been going 3 days in each stage. So I can do stages 2, 3, and 4 in 9 days. So the vibratories are a lot faster, and I do love the results I get. But once again, that doesn't mean you have to use a vibratory. Like I said, these rocks were all done in my 3-pound Lortone rotary tumbler, and they are shiny just like the rocks I'm pulling out of the vibratory. So if you're going to get a vibratory, you still need a rotary to do step 1. You also want to look at your capacities. For a long time, my Tumbler, I just got the Lotto. My Tumbler vibratory tumbler is an 18-pound capacity. It would take me months to get enough rocks ready to fill that thing up. Now the Lotto is about 1/4 of that capacity. It's I want to say 4.5 pound. Okay, so I can fill it up a lot more quickly using my 12-pound. At one point I was running my 12-pound and both 3-pounds running rough in all of them, trying to fill that Tumblers, and it just it would still take forever. But here's the other thing, I do like that I have it, because for something, I'll show you. Here's a rock I'm waiting that I want to tumble in the Tumblers, because it's probably too big for the Lotto. Okay, and I'm gonna have to come up with enough rocks to fill the Tumbler so I can run this. But that's basically what you're looking at. You got to get a tumbler. Oh, also if you use ceramic media, I want to show that too. This is ceramic media you use to fill in or pad a little bit, so that the rocks don't beat each other up. Other random things, you need strainers, kind of like this. Basically, so when you're cleaning the rocks off, you pour the rocks into that, hose them off, and take care of that. I've gotten tons of these little totes so I can have places to keep the rocks. I can have places to keep my grit. I actually, for all my grits, I bought a different little scoop. So, and I keep it in the thing. So this scoop never gets used with anything but 60-90 grit. And I mean, if you look at it, I don't think there's any on it. I don't think it would cross-contaminate, but I'm not taking that risk. I'm gonna make sure I don't cross-contaminate, because this grit, it's kind of like sandpaper. The lower the number, the more abrasive it is. So if you took a piece of wood and you sanded it with 220 grit sandpaper and had it nice and smooth, and then you take a piece of 60 grit sandpaper and you just run across it, you're going to put scratches all over it. So basically, you don't want to risk 60-90 grit getting into your barrel with 120-220 grit. And then when you get to the pre-polish and polish, same thing. It would mess up. You'd have scratches all over your rocks. Okay, hope everybody's enjoyed the video. I'm not sure what I'll do next, but thanks for watching. And if you're thinking of getting into the hobby, like I mentioned in the previous video, another thing is, if patience is not your biggest virtue, then this is probably not the hobby for you. It takes a long time. It takes a long time. But I really enjoy seeing the results I get. And you know, my son enjoys, he'll come down, he'll look at all these rocks and tell me which ones are his. Okay, so take care, good luck, and see you in the next video.